Okay, this is August 31st, 1997 in Lebanon, Ohio. This interview is of Beulah Meyer, who is the wife of Lawrence Meyer. She's been interviewed by Dr. Vernon L. Williams, the Department of History at Abilene Christian University in Abilene, Texas. Beulah, if you would, just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and who your parents were.
Well, I grew up on a farm in I want to say Grant County, but it was Putnam County, the home of DePaul University, and that's where I met Lawrence. And my dad was a farmer. We had about 700 acres there, and I was one of 6. I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and the brothers was older. They made life miserable for me because I was easy to tease. I was the oldest girl. And
what were you doing when you met Lawrence? Were you a student?
no, I'm the only dumb one in the family. I was working at a confectionery, and he was working there too. And on Saturdays, my brothers said that I was going to be a dishwasher. They didn't want me to do it, but I was independent and I wanted my own money. So I went and got a job. I worked there, I don't know, for a year or so. By the time I was still in high school. And
What appealed to you about Lawrence?
well, he was just a good-looking guy.
He was that.
He worked there too, and I would fix his meals for him. And when we started dating, we'd go back there. It was a candy kitchen, and the boss would make candy and pour it out on the marble slab and cut it. He made all kinds of chocolates. Boy, they were good. I like to sell candy, because I'd always take a piece or two. And we made candy canes too, of all sizes for orders and all. And
Well, when did you decide to get married?
oh, I don't know. We went together for about 5 years. And so, of course, I think we both knew all the time that was what was going to happen. But of course, he hadn't finished school yet. And I don't really remember what I did after I was out of high school. Well, yes, I do too. I was a bookkeeper for a Dodge and Plymouth service. And the the owner was a preacher too. But that was my first job. My dad got it for me. And after that, I never asked for a job. It was always somebody wanting me to do something. And
Well, after Lawrence graduated from DePaul, he went into the ownership of the candy store. Were you involved in that too?
yes, I had to loan him money sometimes because he wasn't making enough to get along. And
So when did you get married?
June 1932, June 12th. I don't know whether that's right or not.
So that's many, many years before the war. what did you and Lawrence do for the first few years of your young married life?
Well, we stayed there and I went on and worked. And then he got a job teaching at Fulton. That was his hometown. And I don't know.
Do you remember anything about life in Fulton as a young married couple? What kinds of things did you do for recreation?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
But
What about your first child?
well, she was 6 years after we were married, she came along. And she was spoiled rotten because she was the only one we had. And then before Laverne was born, why, I told Lawrence, I said, we knew he was have to go overseas. And I said, well, I don't want to raise one alone. And so I got pregnant with her, and she was born in Texas.
Well, tell me a little bit about the time that Lawrence was activated, called to active duty. How was that a disruption to your household? What happened to you then?
Well, he called me from school, and he says, I have to report at Fort Knox on the 11th, 12th, I don't remember just what day it was. It's on there sometime in February. And I says, I'm going with you. And he says, you can't. He says, you got all that furniture. We had about 7 rooms of furniture. I says, you watch me. And we had a friend who was an undertaker, and I called him and I says, you got any place to store my furniture? Told him what was happening. He says, sure. There's one room upstairs empty. So we started packing, and we hauled it up there. And so that was it. And when the day come from him to go away, Wanda and the dog and I went with him.
What do you remember about your arrival at Fort Knox? Where did you live? What did you do then?
Well, the first time we got down there, we had to stay all night in Louisville at the Kentucky Hotel. And then we moved out on Virginia Avenue. We lived with one lady, and she was a pill to get along with. And then we found another, well, it was a doctor's wife. Her doctor lived across the street, and then another friend I met in church. And we were together quite a bit. People just rented everything that they had. And so we moved over on the it was near Algonquin Parkway where we lived. Just about 2 blocks from the park. And we spent our time, a lot of times in the park. And Wanda was a little pill. She'd get mad if I'd say no to her. And she lay down any place she was, started kicking and screaming. And one time she lay down in urban tracks. And I couldn't do much about it because she always pulled him someplace where I couldn't get to her. So when one time his aunt and uncle were down, and we went down to the corner store. We had to cross an alley, but it was just, didn't have to cross any street. But the interurban went on the other street, the front street. And so she pulled one of those stunts. And I said, come on, Aunt Louie. I said, let's go. I don't want a child that acts like that. Aunt Louie didn't want to go, but she did come along. And we could look back and see Wanda coming when we got about home. She never pulled that stunt again. So she She was spoiled. She was a cute little girl, and everybody made over.
Let's say the microphones come off here.
Why did that?
It's real easy to do because this material is real slippery on the glass, and this clip is not a very good one. There, I think we got it. Okay, go ahead. Talking about Wanda, and I know she'll really appreciate you putting this on the tape.
Yeah, she called me. Laverne sent it to her a copy, and she says, "Mother, I must have been a little hellish." She says, "I let a friend read it, and she says, Wanda, you must have been terrible." I said, "Well, you were first."
Did you have any problems getting a place to stay because you had a child?
Yes, that was in Abilene. No. The Sunlights was at Camp Barclay.
Okay,
We had a very good place to stay before that. We had one place on 2nd Street was one of these big four colonial houses with a hall through the middle and 3 rooms on one side, 3 rooms on the other side. And Lawrence told me he was going to Leavenworth, and when he come back he would go to Camp Camel. And I said, well, we'll find a place. So a friend who lived next door, we were living in a double on Fort Knox then, and we got in the car and took Wanda, the dog, and went to Camp Camel, and
No, that would be Camp Campbell, or Hopkinsville, or Clarksville, outside
No.
of the camp.
yeah, Clarksville. And we looked for a place, and of course everything was full. No motels or anything of that sort. But we did find this one apartment. The lady said, well, she didn't know for sure whether it was going to be taken or not. But they couldn't tell until the next day. So we had to stay all night. So there was 2 hotels. One was a pretty good one, but they had no room. We went to the other one, and they had 1 room. And he said, well, you can take it or leave it because we have a dance in town tonight, and we won't have any trouble renting it. So we took it. But we had towels and things with us. We took their towels and cleaned the bathroom, looked at the bed, the sheet was cleaned, so we decided we'd stay. And it rained that night. The friends slept on a cot, and we had a double bed. And lost my place.
It was raining. Did it rain inside the room?
Oh yes, it was raining, and the rain came in up under the bed. And we got out next morning, our feet was wet. And I thought it would move the curtains, but they were just so dirty they wouldn't move. And then there was a rope in the corner, and this other lady said, what's that rope for? She says, that's a fire escape. You grab a hold of that rope and jump out the window to the roof next door. And she looked around. She said, well, it stood for a good many years. I think it'll stand one more night. So we stayed all night. And she says, wait till your husband gets to be a general. She says, I'll tell him I know where you lived. Stayed. So we stayed that night, and sure enough, we did get a knock on the door, but we had placed a chair under the doorknob, and we didn't answer the door. But that was the worst place we had stayed. And then when we went to Abilene, Texas, we had Well, Lawrence came back. He went with the troops down to Camp Barkley, and then he'd come back to drive us down. And I had packed our car. Of course, we had food stamps. Packed the bottom of the car up level with the seat, and then I put on top of that the baby bed and the mattress, and Wanda and the dog slept up there. And so he came home, and we had the car all packed, and he says, I just forget just what he said. I said, well, we're all packed. It's all in the car. I've locked the door, turned the key in. So we got in the car and started for Texas. And she liked to hear Pistol Packin' Mama. And we stopped at a place down in Tennessee someplace. And other people there would give her nickels to put in the jukebox so she could hear Pistol Packin' Mama. And then we got to Abilene. There was a colonel, I guess, had a house that was practically new, and he was transferred someplace else. And the general told Lawrence, he says, you take the house because he'll probably never be back. Well, just about, I don't know, a while before Wanda was born, or Laverne was born, he came back. So we had to get out and on a house. Well, we found a 7-roomed house, and the lady says, well, now, with children, we very seldom ever rent a place this nice with children. Well, the paper was on cheesecloth in the front room. It was all patched with all different sizes, long strips, big squares, and it was brown with age. And then behind one door there was just a lot of, had used it for a pincushion. And so we took it, and the furniture was new, but it looked fine, and our curtains were bedspreads. And the girls come over and they say, well, why'd you complain about this? I says, wait till you sit down. It was war stuff, no springs in it at all. And so we stayed there for over a year or something. And the only thing that saved us, it was hot, but we had a hall right straight through the building with part of the rooms on one side, part of them on the other. And that's where we spent most of our time because we had a breeze there. And I got out in the yard when they cut the grass with Lawrence brought me a machete from the fort, and I cut the grass, and there was a house next door which had 5 non-coms living in it. And they came over and they says, I never saw a major's wife out cutting grass. And I says, well, I have to so these kids have some place to play. And the little boy was in the second, lived in the garage, had a little girl too. And they,
well, did he offer to cut it for you?
no, but they would cut. You couldn't find a man anyplace. And so I got it cut, and they played out there, but we'd have to play in the shade of the building. And I had to use the laundry. Of course, Laverne was little, and I'd have to wait until about 5 o'clock. I'd turn the hose on the car to get the handle cool enough so I could get in the car and then I'd drive and do the laundry and come back and hang it up on a line. And by the time I got it finished, it was beginning to dry. It was just so hot. But, and then I had to go to the camp. We used the Army doctor all the time. And they didn't change doctors on me very often because I used rank on them. So I had a Dr. Gillespie that I kept, but most of the time you went out there and waited and waited and waited, and you just got whoever happens to be there. And so I had the same doctor the whole time. And
You remember anything about the station hospital there, what it looked like?
At
Camp Barkley.
No.
Do you remember the big stone sign with a longhorn steer in it as you walked in the front of the hospital? Do you remember that at all?
No, I don't remember it at all.
What about the general's wife? Did you ever have any contact with Mrs. Brewer?
Oh yes, well, not personally, but she's in that one picture there that we had a luncheon out at the Camp Camel, and we were all together.
What was your impression of her?
But she seemed to be all right, very nice, and so we got along all right. There was quite a few of us. It was just the officer's wife, and there's a picture there with us all at a luncheon. And Nick Novosels's wife was in amongst them. And
what about enlisted men's wives? Did you, as a major's wife, ever have to help solve problems or counsel or assist any of those?
of course, the enlisted man's wives were not there. It was just officers' wives. And
did you ever encounter any problems with General Brewer about the fact that you were there? Did you?
No, we had no problems at all. And they were very nice to us.
Did you ever know Betsy Miggs, Montgomery Miggs?
Yes, I did. She lived upstairs over me in the apartment we had. And I can remember her coming down the stairs with her laundry, thump, thump, thump down the stairs. And she was a very nice person.
Did you ever socialize with the Miggs any?
Not too much, because she had her own. I had, of course, we might have played bridge or something together, but I was a very poor bridge player. Have you talked to her?
Yes, a couple of years ago. We have not recorded her interview yet.
Well, she was a very nice person, and everyone seemed to like her. And
what was your impression of Colonel Miggs?
in fact, I don't know much about him, because I knew she was up there, but I could always remember her.
What about Abilene? Can you tell me a little bit about what was there to do? Of course, you're going to have two babies now, but did you go out to eat? Did you go to the movies? Did you go to church? Where? What did you do?
We had a chicken place close. My mother came down when lunch went back to
Leavenworth?
Leavenworth. Well, she came down and stayed with me because she was about 2 months old before he ever saw her. And so, we played bridge. The other girls would come in, that officers' wives that lived there. And It was a,
What about food, groceries? How difficult was it
well,
to,
we always had the commissary, and we had no problems there.
what do you
But
remember?
we did have used to use the stamps the same as anybody else, and we didn't waste them. And so when we went to Texas, that's what I had to pack the car with, was canned goods that we had saved.
So you didn't get any special privileges because you shopped at the base?
No,
Still had to use the ration system.
yes, we used the ration system.
What about the PX? What do you remember about the PX, the kinds of things they had?
Well, they had just about anything you want, I think. And of course, we always went to the PX. Most of Texas, or Clarksville, was off limits to Army personnel because it was such a dirty place, eating place. And so we ate at the officers club at Camp Camel most of the time. And we went out every Sunday afternoon. And of course Lawrence was in Leavenworth then one time. I guess I wrote that up there someplace, where there was a lieutenant that liked her. And every time we go out there, he'd take her and go off someplace. And I had gone out with Nick Novosel and his wife. And so when she came in, I was dancing with Nick. And she just walked out on the floor and took me by the hand, and she says, "My mama doesn't dance with anybody but my daddy," and led me off the floor. So, have you, Nick, he was quite a bit in 12th Armored, and he was under Lawrence for a while, and when he got shot up, and I think he always kind of felt that it was partly Lawrence's fault, because he wasn't so friendly after that, but we had been good friends before. And I still hear from Barbara every Christmas. That was his first wife. And so...
Why would he think that?
Hmm?
Why would he think that? Why would
Lawrence,
Novosad think that it was Lawrence's fault?
don't know. Oh, I don't know. Because he gave the orders or something. But of course he had to. He was told to do it. Lawrence was called off of a command.
Excuse me, you got that, lost it again.
If I keep my hand away from it.
It's hard, I do the same thing when I'm doing it. You gotta have something to do with your hands. There we go. Go ahead, you said if Lawrence was... We're talking about his job as a commander and making decisions and giving orders.
Well, of course, Nick was under him. Then he was a little over Nick. And Lawrence wrote the order, I guess, but he was told to write it. It wasn't his fault at all. And he was taken off of a command, of a combat command, that he would have been a colonel out there then. But the colonel that took him off put him back on the general staff because the general couldn't write messages, but what they could be interpreted two ways. And Lawrence had the gift of writing them. And you didn't misunderstood what he had. And he said he always tried them out on his wife. That's the reason he knew. So they took him back there. And I know the colonel, I said, got after him. He said, "Oh, well," he says, "he'll be safer there." And of course he maybe was. But that,
What else do you remember about Abilene?
Well, not, I don't know. We shopped downtown all the time, and I remember about being back there a few years after that, and they were doing Main Street in Abilene, and they had did the whole street from curb to curb, and to get across, she had bridges across, and so.
What about the time that you found out that Lawrence was going to go overseas? What impact did that have on your household?
Well, I just told him. I said, "Well, I'll take him there." Of course, we knew it. He would have to go sometime, and that didn't have too much of an effect. But I was getting ready to go, and we had to pay $100 down for the apartment in case to clean it up. But if we cleaned it up, we were supposed to get it back, but we didn't. And so I took him. I says, I'll take you down to the depot. And he says, "You're not supposed to." I says, "Watch me." And of course, I did that several times and got by with it. And I
Do you remember the day or the evening that they were shipping out? Did you go out to the base like some of the other officers' wives? Or were you gone by then?
I wasn't on the base. I was living in Abilene on 2nd Street.
But when the men were getting ready to get on the trains to leave for combat, for Camp Shanks, were you still in Abilene at that time?
Yes.
Did you get to go out to say goodbye, or did you
Yes,
say goodbye?
I took him down to the train. And so...
So out at View,
Hmm?
out at View, Texas, where the trains were, when he was getting on to leave?
I thought it was in Abilene. I don't know just where it was.
What'd you do after he leaves?
I went home, spent a week cleaning the place over. He had a case of beer there that he had for when other officers came in and all to drink. Someone told me if you drink a bottle of beer, you'll sleep like a kitten. And so I knew I would need some sleep if I was going to drive the next day. So I drank a bottle, but it didn't do me any good. I didn't like it in the first place. So I gave the beer to people in the garage apartment. And one time we had a lot of scorpions down there, and we came in. Laverne was in the baby bed, and here was a scorpion on the baby bed, but I got it before it bit her. So this little boy got bit with a scorpion, and we heard him yelling, and his mother said that they put tobacco juice on it, and that stopped the sting. So, and
Okay, so you drove back?
I drove back from Abilene to, I had a girl, she came with me, she was from Greencastle, and she couldn't drive, but she could help take care of the children, and I had made I had a basket, or a folding basket that fit on the back of my car. I had an Oldsmobile then, and that's where Laverne slept, and I had never encouraged her to set up because I was afraid, I knew I had to go back, that she'd want to be setting up all the time. But so she laid back there and slept a lot of times, and I did the driving, and we'd stop to eat. One time, well, we got lost in Louisville. No, St. Louis. And I got down under the tracks, and I filling station down there, and I says, how do you get across that bridge? He says, well, you made a sharp turn. I said, well, I'll go back and try it again. And I got across. Then we had to drive and drive till we found a place open to eat. And well, it was about 8 o'clock or so when we found a place, and we were hungry, so we went back, and they fed us. They were closed, but they fed us. And we went back, stayed all night there. That motel was not bad at all, but can't remember too much about it. But then the next morning we drove to Terre Haute, where my brother I don't know. Anyway, my mother was there, and I went to Greencastle with her, and I didn't have any trouble. I had some coupons or something if I had trouble with the tires or anything on the car, but I didn't until I got to Greencastle. And my sister had married the sheriff's son, and they lived in the jail. And the curb was high, and I hit that pretty hard, broke a valve and a tire. So I had to wait till the next day to get someone to fix it. And then I drove to Fulton, where we had lived, which was about 112 miles away. And I stayed with Lawrence's aunt and uncle, and the next day I got out to hunt for a place to live. Went to Logansport, which was about 15 miles away, and found a place, 3 rooms with a lady. I had a front room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. And so I had this, then after I called the storage company, I had sent my furniture back to Logansport when we went to Texas, or went to Abilene. And I called the storage place and told them to bring my furniture. Well, they brought it. The furniture was mohair, and the moths just flew. So I called them up. I said, I thought this was supposed to be in cold storage. And he said, well, it was. And I said, how come the moths flew? Oh, they got in there. They were in there. And I said, no, they weren't. I said, anyway, that ended that furniture there, but we used it until we were able to get some more. But, then his folks, his aunt and uncle lived at Fulton about, I don't know if it was 15 miles or so, and we go out there on weekends. And I had, this Oldsmobile was one that had the transmission oil. You put the transmission the same as you put in the car, in the engine. And a lot of people had, Abilene or Texas, any place we were, thought I was wrong because they couldn't do that. And so I'd have to go out and ask Lawrence. I said, they don't want to do this for me. And then we got it so that they would put the oil in. And so.
What did you do for the rest of the time while Lawrence was away? Did you just live there, and did you
While
work
he was
there?
away, I went back there. I worked in Red Cross when I was in Abilene and in Clarksville. And after we went back to Fulton. Just took care of the kids, I guess. And
Well, have you, looking back now over the World War II period, have we touched on everything that you want to put on this tape, or is there anything else you want to add that you haven't talked about?
I don't know. You had that one the story I wrote for my granddaughter, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that just about tells everything because I can remember that.
Well, thank you very much.